"Zara, what the hell is this?" I demanded, holding up the shredded remains of my late mother's quilt. Zara smirked, her green eyes glinting with malice. "Oops, my scissors slipped. Guess you'll have to toss out that ratty old thing now, Camille. It's not like it belonged in this house anyway, just like you." I stood there, my hands shaking with rage as I clutched the tattered fabric. This quilt was the last piece of my mother I had left, a cherished memento of the love and warmth she always provided. And now, thanks to my spiteful teenage sister-in-law, it was ruined. But I shouldn't have been surprised. This was just another day in the Hawthorne household, where I was constantly reminded that I would never truly belong. As I looked around the lavish penthouse with its sleek modern furnishings and breathtaking city views, I felt like an outsider, an intruder in my own home. I had given up everything, my career as a fashion designer, my independence, my identity, to be with Jackson, to be the perfect society wife. But no matter how hard I tried, his family made it clear I would never be good enough. "What's going on in here?" Olivia, my mother-in-law, strutted into the room, her critical gaze sweeping over me. "Camille, I thought I told you to have the laundry finished by noon. Honestly, it's not that hard. What do you even do all day?" I bit my tongue, swallowing the retort that bubbled up, that I spent my days cooking, cleaning, and catering to her every whim, that I poured my heart into being the homemaker she demanded, even as she belittled my every effort. "I was just about to get to it, Olivia," I said evenly, "but then I found this." I held up the destroyed quilt, my eyes burning with unshed tears. "Zara, Oh, that old thing?" Olivia cut me off with a dismissive wave. It was an eyesore anyway. "Zara did you a favor getting rid of it." She turned to her daughter with an approving smile. "Good job, sweetheart. This house has no room for Camille's second-hand rags." Zara preened under the praise, shooting me a triumphant smirk. I opened my mouth to protest, but just then Jackson walked in. "What's with all the commotion?" he asked, loosening his tie. His eyes fell on the quilt in my hands, and he frowned. "Is that your mother's blanket? What happened to it?" "Your sister destroyed it," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "On purpose, and your mother is congratulating her." Jackson sighed, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "Cam, I'm sure it was an accident. Don't make a big deal out of it." An accident? Was he serious? I stared at him, searching his face for any hint of the man I fell in love with, the man who promised to always stand by my side. But lately, that man was getting harder and harder to find. "You're taking their side?" I asked incredulously. "Again, Jackson, this quilt was priceless to me. It was all I had left of my mother, and now it's gone." "It's just a blanket, Camille," he said impatiently. "I'll buy you a new one, a nicer one. Just let it go, okay? Let it go." That's what he always said. Every time his family disrespected me, every time they made me feel small and worthless, he told me to let it go, to be the bigger person. But as I stood there, surrounded by the people who were supposed to be my family, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep shrinking myself to fit into their narrow expectations. I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness, my very sense of self, for a man who wouldn't even stand up for me. Something inside me snapped, a hidden reserve of strength and resolve I didn't know I had. I dropped the ruined quilt and squared my shoulders, meeting Olivia's icy glare head-on. "No," I said firmly, "I won't let it go. Not this time. I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done playing by your rules. From now on, I'm standing up for myself, with or without your support." And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out, my head held high. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. I was done being a doormat in my own life. It was time to take back control, no matter the cost. The confrontation with Zara and Olivia left me shaking with anger and humiliation. I couldn't believe the cruelty they were capable of, destroying the one thing I cherished most. And Jackson, my supposed partner, had once again failed to stand up for me. I stormed into our bedroom, hot tears stinging my eyes. I yanked open the closet door, grabbing a suitcase and tossing clothes haphazardly inside. I couldn't stay here another minute, not with these vipers who delighted in tearing me down. "What do you think you're doing?" Jackson's voice cut through the room, sharp and accusatory. I whirled around, my heart pounding. "I'm leaving, Jackson. I can't do this anymore. I won't." He scoffed, crossing his arms. "Don't be dramatic, Camille. It was just a stupid quilt." It was my mother's quilt, I shouted, my voice cracking. The only piece of her I had left, and your sister destroyed it on purpose, while your mother cheered her on. They didn't mean anything by it, he said dismissively. You're overreacting as usual. I stared at him, incredulous. Overreacting? Are you kidding me? Your family has done nothing but belittle and demean me from the moment I stepped into this house, and you've let them. What do you want me to do, Camille? He snapped. They're my family. I can't just turn my back on them. But you can turn your back on me, I retorted. Your wife? The mother of your child? He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. You knew my family could be difficult. Difficult? I laughed bitterly. They're monsters, Jackson, and you're just as bad for enabling them. His face hardened, his eyes turning to ice. Watch yourself, Camille. Remember, I'm the one who gave you this life. This luxurious penthouse, the clothes on your back, the food on your plate. Without me, you're nothing. His words hit me like a slap. Is that really how he saw me? As some charity case he had deigned to rescue from a life of mediocrity? Well then, I guess it's a good thing I'm leaving, I said coldly. I'd rather have nothing than spend another second with you and your toxic family. I zipped up the suitcase, brushing past him, but he grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back, he hissed. I'll make sure you never see Mia again. I'll bury you in so much legal red tape you'll be destitute and alone. Is that what you want? Fear seized my heart at the thought of losing my daughter, of being cut off from the one pure, untainted love in my life. But then something caught my eye. Peeking out from under the bed was a scrap of red lace. With a sinking feeling, I reached down and pulled out a skimpy thong, one that definitely didn't belong to me. What the hell is this? I demanded, holding up the offending undergarment. For a split second, panic flashed across Jackson's face, but he quickly composed himself, snatching the thong from my hand. It's nothing, he said smoothly, probably just something of Zara's that got mixed up in the laundry. Bullshit, I spat. Zara wouldn't be caught dead in La Perla, but you know who would? I stepped closer, my voice dripping with venom. Your secretary, Lily. He blanched, confirming my suspicions. The late nights at the office, the whispered phone calls, the designer gifts he claimed were for clients. It all made sense now. How long? I asked, my voice eerily calm. How long have you been screwing her behind my back? Camille, I can explain, he started, but I cut him off with a harsh laugh. Save it, I said, grabbing my suitcase. I'm done. With you, with this sham of a marriage, with this entire fucked-up family. You can have your little mistress. But I'm taking Mia, and I'm taking you for everything you're worth. I strode out of the room, my head held high, even as tears streamed down my face. I had lost my mother's quilt, my dignity, my faith in the man I loved. But I refused to lose myself. This was war, and I was ready to fight like hell. With shaking hands, I rifled through the drawers of Jackson's mahogany desk, my heart pounding in my ears. I needed proof of his infidelity, something tangible to use against him in the divorce proceedings. Beneath a stack of financial reports, I found it. A small, black velvet box. My stomach lurched as I flipped it open, revealing a stunning diamond bracelet. The kind of bracelet you give to a mistress, not a wife. I snapped a photo with my phone, then kept digging. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, email printouts, all painting a sordid picture of Jackson's extramarital activities. He had been lavishing Lily with gifts and clandestine getaways, all while treating me like a burden. Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce. How dare he? How dare he betray me, humiliate me, make me feel like I was the problem when he was the one stepping out on our marriage? I thought back to all the times he had critiqued my appearance, making snide comments about my post-baby body. The way he would roll his eyes when I talked about my fashion blog, dismissing it as a silly hobby. He had chipped away at my self-esteem, piece by piece, until I barely recognized myself. But now I saw him for what he truly was. A manipulative, selfish bastard who cared only about his own pleasure and status. Well, I was done being his trophy wife, his arm candy, his doormat. I gathered up the evidence, stuffing it into my purse. Then I marched into the living room where Jackson was pouring himself a scotch, acting like he didn't have a care in the world. You son of a bitch, I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. How could you do this to me? to our family." He looked up, his expression a mix of annoyance and boredom. "Do what, Camille? What are you babbling about now?" I threw the credit card statements at his feet, watching as they fluttered to the ground. "I know about Lily. I know you've been cheating on me." For a moment he looked stunned, then his face twisted into an ugly sneer. "So what if I have? Can you blame me? Look at you, Camille. You let yourself go. You're not the woman I married." His words sliced through me like a knife, but I refused to let him see me crumble. Not anymore. "No, I'm not," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I'm better, because I'm done letting you treat me like garbage. I'm done being your wife, your punching bag, your fucking servant." I pulled out my phone, showing him the photo of the diamond bracelet. I wonder what the tabloids would make of this. The great Jackson Hawthorne caught showering his secretary with jewels while his wife raises his child. His face paled, his eyes darting to the phone. "Camille, let's not be hasty. We can work this out. I can change, I swear." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "It's too late for that. I've already filed for divorce, and I'm going for full custody of Mia." "You can't do that," he sputtered, his fists clenching. "I won't let you take my daughter from me." "You should have thought of that before you stuck your dick in your secretary," I spat. "I'm done being your doormat, Jackson. I'm taking Mia, and I'm taking half of everything. You can rot in hell with your precious family for all I care." I turned to walk away, but his next words stopped me cold. "You'll never make it on your own," he sneered. "You're nothing without me, Camille. Just a washed-up wannabe designer with a stupid little blog. You need me." I whirled back around, getting right in his face. "Watch me," I hissed. "I'm going to build a life for myself and Mia, a better life than you ever gave us. And when I'm a success, when my designs are walking down runways and gracing magazine covers, I'll make sure the whole world knows the truth about you, about the kind of man you really are." With that, I stormed out of the penthouse, Mia clutched tightly in my arms. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. I was never looking back. Jackson Hawthorne and his vicious family could burn in the hell they'd made for themselves. I was free, and I was ready to rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. Months had passed since I walked out on Jackson and his toxic family. Mia and I had settled into a small but cozy studio apartment, far from the glittering penthouse that had been our gilded cage. Money was tight, but we were making it work. I poured my heart into my fashion blog, determined to turn it into something more, a career, a future, a way out of the mess my life had become. I was just putting Mia down for a nap when a frantic knocking sounded at the door. Frowning, I tiptoed over and peeked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. Zara. For a moment, I considered pretending I wasn't home. The last thing I needed was more drama from the Hawthorns. But something in Zara's expression, a desperate, haunted look I had never seen before, made me unlock the door. "Zara?" I said cautiously. "What are you doing here?" She pushed past me, her eyes wild. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, her voice breaking. "Everything's fallen apart, Camille. It's all gone to shit." I closed the door, my heart pounding. "What are you talking about? What's happened?" The story spilled out of her in fits and starts, each revelation more shocking than the last. After the divorce, Walter's shady business dealings had come to light. Embezzlement, fraud, money laundering. He had been running a criminal empire right under everyone's noses. The FBI had seized all their assets, leaving the family penniless and disgraced. Jackson, unable to cope with the shame and pressure, had turned to alcohol and gambling. He had blown through what little money they had left, racking up massive debts to some very dangerous people. Olivia, always so poised and put together, had suffered a nervous breakdown and was currently in a psychiatric ward. And Zara? She had been unceremoniously kicked out of her elite private school, her tuition left unpaid. She was broke, homeless, and utterly alone. "I didn't know where else to turn," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I know I've been awful to you, Camille. I know I don't deserve your help, but I have nowhere else to go." I stared at her, conflicting emotions warring inside me. A part of me, the part that still stung from her cruelty, wanted to turn her away, to let her suffer the consequences of her actions. But another part, the part that knew how it felt to be lost and scared, couldn't bear to leave her on the streets. "You can stay here," I said finally, my voice tight. "For a little while. until you figure something out. Her shoulders sagged with relief, fresh tears spilling over. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you so much, Camille. I swear, I'll make it up to you. I'll be better, I promise. I held up a hand, cutting off her tearful rambling. Let's get one thing straight, Zara. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Mia. She deserves to have her aunt in her life, even if that aunt is a spoiled brat who made my life hell. Zara flinched at my harsh words, but nodded. I understand, and I'm sorry, Camille, for everything. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I know, but sorry doesn't erase the past. If you're going to stay here, there will be rules, boundaries. You will treat me with respect, pull your weight around the apartment, and be a positive influence on Mia. If you can't do that, then there's the door. She nodded vigorously, her eyes wide. I will, I promise. I'll do whatever you say. Good, I said, my tone softening slightly. Then let's get you settled in. It's not much, but it's home. As I showed Zara to the pull-out couch that would be her bed, I couldn't help but marvel at the twists and turns life had taken. A year ago, I had been the one groveling at the Hawthorns' feet, desperate for scraps of their approval. Now they were the ones crawling to me for help. Their world shattered beyond repair. It was a bittersweet victory, one that tasted of ashes and regret. But as I watched Zara curl up on the couch, her face etched with gratitude and exhaustion, I knew I had made the right choice. Not for her, but for me. For the person I wanted to be, the person my mother had raised me to be. Someone who could find compassion, even in the face of cruelty. Someone who could rise above the pain and pettiness and choose to be better. Someone who could finally truly be free. Living with Zara was a test of my patience and resolve. Despite her tearful promises to change, old habits die hard. She was moody, entitled, and prone to lashing out when things didn't go her way. More than once I had to bite my tongue to keep from throwing her out on the street. But I persevered, for Mia's sake. My daughter had lost so much already. Her father, her grandparents, the only home she'd ever known. I couldn't bear to take her aunt away, too, no matter how difficult Zara made things. So I set clear boundaries, laying out the rules of the apartment in no uncertain terms. Zara was to clean up after herself, contribute to the household chores, and watch her language around Mia. If she couldn't follow those simple guidelines, she was welcome to leave. To my surprise, Zara actually made an effort. She tidied the living room without being asked, helped with the dishes, and even entertained Mia while I worked on my blog. It wasn't a complete transformation, but it was progress. And my blog, it was finally taking off. My honest, raw posts about my divorce and starting over had struck a chord with readers. My follower count was skyrocketing, and I was getting more sponsored content offers than ever before. But the real game changer came in the form of an email from a major fashion magazine. They had stumbled across my blog and were impressed with my designs. They wanted to feature me in a multi-page spread, showcasing my work to the world. I stared at the email, my heart pounding. This was it. The big break I had been dreaming of. The chance to turn my passion into a real career. With shaking hands, I typed out a reply, accepting their offer. I knew I should be ecstatic, but a part of me was terrified. Putting myself out there, exposing my creations to the judgment of the fashion industry, it was a huge risk. If they hated my work, it could crush my dreams before they even had a chance to take flight. But I couldn't let fear hold me back. Not anymore. I had spent too long playing it safe, shrinking myself to fit into the mold of the perfect wife and mother. It was time to bet on myself, to chase my dreams with everything I had. I threw myself into preparing for the feature, stitching and sketching late into the night. Zara, to her credit, stepped up to help with Mia, keeping her occupied so I could work. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. As the date of the photo shoot approached, I could barely contain my excitement. This was really happening. I was going to be in a magazine, my designs splashed across glossy pages for all the world to see. I was so caught up in my own head, I almost didn't hear the knock at the door. Assuming it was the mailman, I swung it open without checking the peephole. My stomach dropped. There, standing in the dingy hallway of my apartment building, were the last people I ever expected to see. Jackson, Walter, and Olivia. My ex-husband and former in-laws, the people who had made my life a living hell. They looked haggard and worn, their designer clothes rumpled and stained. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and fear. Jackson stepped forward, his bloodshot eyes pleading. "Camille, we need your help. We have nowhere else to go." I wanted to slam the door in their faces, to tell them to go to hell and never come back. But before I could, Walter shouldered his way into the apartment, Olivia and Jackson close behind. "We're moving in," Walter announced, dropping his suitcase on the floor. "You have a spare room, don't you? It'll be just like old times." I stared at them, my mouth hanging open in shock. The audacity, the sheer nerve of these people. To show up at my door, expecting me to take them in after everything they had done. But as I looked at their desperate, defeated faces, I realized something. They had nothing left. No money, no status, no power. They were at rock bottom, just like I had been. And in that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could turn them away, leave them to fend for themselves on the streets, or I could be the bigger person, the person my mother had raised me to be. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "Fine," I said, my voice hard. "You can stay, but we're doing this on my terms. And if you cross me, even once, you're gone." "Understood?" They nodded, relief etched on their faces. As they shuffled into the apartment, a sense of grim satisfaction settled over me. The Hawthorns had taken everything from me. My home, my marriage, my self-worth. But now the tables had turned. Now they were the ones at my mercy, and I was going to make damn sure they never forgot it. The Hawthorns settled into my apartment like a plague, infesting every corner with their toxic presence. They critiqued everything from the size of the rooms to the threadbare furnishings, making snide comments about how far I had fallen. I gritted my teeth and bore it, reminding myself that this was temporary. As soon as my feature launched, I would have the means to kick them out and never look back. But living with them was a nightmare. Walter and Olivia commandeered the bedroom, leaving Jackson to sleep on the couch. They treated my home like a hotel, expecting me to wait on them hand and foot. Olivia was the worst, constantly finding fault with my parenting and housekeeping. "Really, Camille," she sniffed, eyeing the dishes in the sink. "I thought you would have learned to keep a cleaner house by now. It's no wonder Jackson strayed." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. It took every ounce of willpower not to throw her designer luggage out the window. Jackson, for his part, mostly avoided me. He spent his days sulking around the apartment, drinking my cheap vodka and muttering about his fall from grace. I caught him eyeing Zara a few times, his gaze lingering on her developing curves. It made my skin crawl. But Zara surprised me. She stepped up in ways I never could have imagined, helping with Mia and standing up to Olivia's barbs. "Back off, Mom," she snapped one evening when Olivia started in on my cooking. "Camille's doing the best she can, which is more than I can say for you." Olivia's face turned an ugly shade of purple, but she shut her mouth. I shot Zara a grateful look, mouthing a silent, "Thank you." As the day of my big photo shoot approached, the tension in the apartment reached a boiling point. I was a bundle of nerves, triple-checking my designs and obsessing over every detail. "I don't know why you're bothering with this silly little hobby," Walter sneered, flipping through my sketches. "It's not like you have any real talent. You should be focusing on finding a rich husband to take care of you and Mia." I snatched the sketches back, my hands shaking with rage. "This is not a hobby," I said, my voice low and fierce. "This is my career, my passion, and I will not let you or anyone else diminish that." Walter scoffed, exchanging a knowing look with Olivia. "Career? Please. You're a washed-up housewife with delusions of grandeur. You'll never make it in the fashion world." I opened my mouth to retort, but Mia's cry from the bedroom cut me off. I shot Walter a venomous glare and hurried to comfort my daughter. As I rocked Mia back to sleep, I felt a surge of determination. I would show them. I would show everyone. I was more than just Jackson Hawthorne's ex-wife, more than a mother, more than a failed socialite. I was Camille Rousseau, a designer, a dreamer, a survivor. And I was going to take the fashion world by storm, no matter what it took. The morning of the shoot dawned bright and clear. I kissed Mia goodbye, leaving her in Zara's capable hands. Then I gathered up my designs and headed out the door, my heart pounding with excitement and nerves. But when I returned home that evening, flush with the success of the shoot, I found the apartment in chaos. Mia was crying, her little face streaked with tears. Zara was nowhere to be seen, and there, in the middle of the living room, were Walter and Olivia. They were surrounded by the tattered remains of my sketches and fabric samples, their faces twisted with malice. "What have you done?" I gasped, my voice barely above a whisper. Olivia smiled, a cruel, vicious thing. "We put an end to this foolish pipe dream of yours. Did you really think we would let you succeed? Let you humiliate us even further?" I stared at the ruins of my work, months of blood, sweat, and tears reduced to scraps. I wanted to scream, to rage, to fall to my knees and weep, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not in front of them. Not in front of Mia. So I did the only thing I could. I squared my shoulders, lifted my chin, and met their triumphant gazes with a steely one of my own. "Get out," I said, my voice calm and cold as ice. "Get out of my house and never come back. You have no power over me anymore." And with that, I took my daughter's hand and walked away, leaving the stunned Hawthorns in my wake. They had tried to break me, to crush my dreams and my spirit, but they had underestimated me. I was Camille Rousseau, and I would rise from the ashes of their cruelty, stronger and more determined than ever. This was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of grim determination. The Hawthorns had destroyed my designs, but they hadn't destroyed me. I would not let their cruelty derail my dreams. I got Mia ready for daycare, kissing her chubby cheeks and promising to be back soon. Then I headed out to meet with the magazine editor, praying that I could salvage something from this mess. But when I arrived at the office, my heart sank. The editor's face was tight with concern, her brow furrowed as she flipped through the tattered remains of my portfolio. "Camille," she said gently, "I'm so sorry, but we can't run the feature like this. The designs are ruined, and we go to print in less than a week. There's just no time to reshoot everything." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. This was my big break, my one shot at making it in the fashion world. And now, thanks to the Hawthorns, it was slipping through my fingers. But I refused to give up. "Not now, not ever. Please," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "I can fix this. I can recreate the designs, work around the clock to make it happen. Just give me a chance." The editor hesitated, her eyes searching mine. "Okay," she said finally. "You have 48 hours. If you can deliver the designs by then, we'll run the feature. But Camille, this is your last chance. Don't let me down." I nodded, my throat tight with gratitude and determination. "I won't, I promise." I raced home, my mind already whirling with ideas. I would have to work non-stop, forgoing sleep and meals to make this happen, but I would do it. I had to. When I burst through the door of my apartment, however, I stopped short. The place was trashed, even worse than before. Furniture overturned, dishes smashed, clothes strewn everywhere. And there, in the middle of the chaos, was Zara. She was huddled on the floor, her knees drawn up to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "Zara?" I said softly, kneeling down beside her. "What happened? Where's Mia?" She looked up at me, her eyes haunted. "They took her," she whispered. "Mom and Dad, they came back after you left, demanding to see her. I tried to stop them, but they pushed past me. They said they were taking her away, that you were an unfit mother, that she belonged with them." My blood ran cold. They had taken my daughter. My sweet, innocent Mia, the one pure light in my life. I grabbed Zara by the shoulders, my fingers digging into her skin. "Where did they go? Tell me, Zara. Where did they take her?" She shook her head, fresh tears spilling over. "I don't know. They wouldn't say. But Camille, there's something else." She took a shuddering breath, her next words hitting me like a sledgehammer. "Jackson was with them. He helped them take her." I staggered back, my vision blurring. Jackson. My ex-husband, the father of my child. He had betrayed me in the deepest way possible, siding with his vicious family over his own daughter. But I didn't have time to process the pain, the anger, the sickening sense of betrayal. I had to find Mia. I had to get her back. I turned to Zara, my voice hard as steel. "Pack a bag. We're going to find them, and we're going to bring Mia home. And then—" I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. "Then we're going to make them pay for what they've done." Zara nodded, a flicker of her old fire returning to her eyes. "I'm with you, Camille. No matter what it takes." We set out into the night, two women on a mission. I didn't know where the Hawthorns had gone or how we would find them, but I did know one thing. They had messed with the wrong mother, the wrong woman. and they were about to learn just how far I would go to protect what was mine. This wasn't just about my career anymore, or my pride, or even my revenge. This was about my daughter, my family, and heaven help anyone who stood in my way. It had been 5 years since that fateful night. 5 years since I had rescued Mia from the clutches of the Hawthorns and walked away from their toxic influence for good. In that time, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. My feature in the magazine had been a resounding success, launching my career as a sought-after designer. I had moved Mia and myself into a beautiful townhouse, far from the painful memories of our past. We were happy, healthy, and thriving. But I never forgot what the Hawthorns had done, the scars they had left on my soul. And as I watched their lives unravel from afar, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. Walter and Olivia, once the king and queen of high society, were now divorced and destitute. Walter had been arrested for his financial crimes, his reputation in tatters. Olivia, unable to cope with the shame and scandal, had fled to Europe, where she lived a lonely, bitter existence. Jackson, my charming ex-husband, had drowned in his own vices. His gambling debts had caught up with him, forcing him to sell off every last possession. Last I heard, he was living in a seedy motel room, drowning his sorrows in cheap whiskey. And then there was Zara, my former tormentor, the girl who had made my life a living hell. She had shown up at my door a few months ago, looking thin and haggard, her eyes haunted by the ghosts of her past. "Camille," she had whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am for everything." I had stared at her, this broken shell of a girl, and felt a flicker of pity. "I forgave you a long time ago, Zara," I said softly. "Not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to that anger, that resentment, it was poisoning me from the inside out." She had nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't deserve your kindness, Camille, not after what I did. But I want you to know that I'm going to be better. I'm going to make something of myself, just like you did." I had smiled then, a genuine smile. "I know you will, Zara. You're a Hawthorn, after all, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're survivors." She had left then, her head held high, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. And as I watched her go, I realized that I had finally found the peace I had been searching for all these years. Not through revenge or spite or bitterness, but through forgiveness, through letting go of the past and embracing the future. I looked around my beautiful home, at the photos of Mia and I smiling and laughing, at the racks of clothing bearing my own label. I had built this life for myself, brick by brick, stitch by stitch, and I was proud of it. I thought back to that scared, broken woman I had been all those years ago, the one who had cowered in the shadow of the Hawthorns' cruelty. I barely recognized her now because I was no longer that woman. I was Camille Rousseau, fashion designer, mother, survivor, and I had risen from the ashes of my past like a phoenix, stronger and more radiant than ever before. As I sat down at my desk to sketch out my latest collection, I felt a sense of deep contentment wash over me. I had faced the demons of my past and emerged victorious. I had found my purpose, my passion, my true self. And nothing, not the Hawthorns, not the challenges of single motherhood, not the cutthroat world of fashion, could take that away from me. I was free. I was whole. I was finally truly happy. And as I lost myself in the flow of creation, the fabrics and colors swirling beneath my fingertips, I knew that this was just the beginning of my new life, my new story. A story of resilience, of redemption, of love, a story that was all my own.